culture in present-day Denmark, Norway, and Sweden reflect their common heritage. So does the seafaring tradition, which plays such an important role in all Scandinavian life. Despite their common characteristics, the three nations take great pride in maintaining their separate identities. One may say that Denmark, Norway, and Sweden exhibit individual differences amidst common purposes. In this film, we shall explore these common purposes and individual differences. Democracy, with its right to vote and to express individual differences, has long been a part of the Scandinavian tradition, and the oldest parliament in the modern world is found in Iceland, settled by Norwegian farmers in the 10th century. The kingdoms of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden are located in the north of Europe. Denmark, the southernmost of the three, is the home of 4.5 million people. It comprises the peninsula of Jutland and many large and small islands, of which about 100 are inhabited. These include the far-off Faroe Islands and Greenland. Denmark has long been a bridge between the countries of Central and Southern Europe and the lands of Norway and Sweden, which together form the Scandinavian peninsula. A third of Norway lies north of the Arctic Circle, but the prevailing winds blowing off the relatively warm waters of the North Atlantic are responsible for its mild maritime climate. Norway has very limited resources and a population of 3.5 million. Sweden, with a population of 7.5 million, has far more resources and more industry than either Denmark or Norway. Yet the levels of living of all three countries are among the highest in Europe. In 1952, these three countries, along with Finland and Iceland, formed the Nordic Council to further cooperation between all the Nordic countries. Since that time, the links between Denmark, Norway, and Sweden have grown stronger. A visitor from abroad immediately realizes that Scandinavian cooperation extends to many areas of everyday life. Cooperation has resulted in the passing of many identical laws in each of the countries. Some of these laws relate to marriage and divorce, to citizenship, and to many aspects of trade and commerce, including travel. Scandinavian citizens are no longer required to have passports for travel between their countries. As a result, it is much easier for Danes, Swedes, and Norwegians to travel back and forth between their three nations. Telephone and postal services are also coordinated by means of inter-Scandinavian rates and regulations. The northern countries have long been known for their advanced social legislation. In recent years, great progress has been made in assuring citizens of one Scandinavian country, living or visiting in another of the countries, the same health and welfare benefits as the native citizens enjoy. If a Dane, for example, needs to claim medical insurance benefits while in Norway, he merely goes to the nearest health insurance office, shows his Danish identity card, and is paid in exactly the same way as a Norwegian. To receive unemployment insurance, old age pensions, and similar benefits, it doesn't make any difference whether a Scandinavian resides in his own or another Scandinavian country. Nordic cooperation has also created a common labor market within Scandinavia. A worker can take a job in any of the three countries. Thus, many of the employees at this ultra-modern Swedish automobile plant are Norwegians, Danes, and Finns. There is almost no unemployment in Scandinavia today, and the economy is prospering. This prosperity is responsible for the ever-increasing number of automobiles to be found throughout the cities and countrysides of the north. more traditional means of transportation. But the evidences of prosperity and the ready availability of all sorts of consumer goods are to be found everywhere. The well-stocked shops and food stores are a far cry from the Scandinavia of the 19th century, when over 1 million Danes, Norwegians, and Swedes immigrated to the United States to escape the widespread poverty in their homelands. Today, superhighways and new buildings are being built as more and more people from rural areas move to the rapidly expanding urban centers. To meet the pressing shortage of housing, the Scandinavians have adopted some of the most advanced methods of building to be found anywhere in the world. An ever-present feature of the landscape are the huge horizontal cranes, and prefabricated sections are widely used. New construction is financed by private industry, by cooperative building societies, by government agencies, and by various combinations of the three. Scandinavia relies heavily on trade with other parts of the world. The three countries must import a great variety of the things they need, including raw materials used in manufacturing. Norway, whose imports equal 40% of her national income, has the fourth largest merchant fleet in the world. To pay for these imports, the three Scandinavian countries must sell their manufactured goods abroad. And to do this, they must modernize their old-fashioned factories and workshops and adopt advanced production techniques. The traditional workshop, with a handful of employees, is fast becoming a relic of the past. So is the single craftsman, who is able to turn out a finished product all by himself. In their efforts to compete in the world market, the Danes, the Swedes, and the Norwegians are putting great emphasis on finding more efficient and more economical ways of doing things. They refer to this as rationalizing. The word rationalize, in all its forms, is one of the most frequently heard expressions in Scandinavia. It has many meanings, all of them concerned with the creation of a modern, efficient economy. Using the latest machines and technological advances, new modern factories are often located in the countryside. The relocation of industry to rural areas is causing important economic and social changes in these regions. Whether it be fishing in Norway, farming in Denmark, or forestry in Sweden, modern technology is changing the methods of obtaining the natural resources of the North. The forests of Norway and Sweden are very valuable. During the last century, they have been the basis for a rapidly growing paper and pulp industry. In the past, most of the work was done by hand, and only at certain times of the year. Today, all of this is changing. Specialized types of semi-automatic lumbering equipment require much less labor, and at the same time, increase output. The result? More timber and wood pulp at a lower cost. Modern technology has also been responsible for the introduction of new means of transportation. And cooperative enterprise has enabled the Scandinavians to provide an efficient air transportation service, both at home and abroad. The Scandinavian airline system is an outstanding example of Scandinavian economic cooperation. By pooling their resources and manpower, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden have been able to set up a far-flung system of air transportation of worldwide importance. No one of the three countries could have done this alone. Within Scandinavia, many remote areas have been provided with regular air service. Cooperation between the countries has been beneficial to all. However, differences in their landforms, climate, and resources create conditions which must be dealt with on a national and local basis. sparsely populated west coast of Norway, for example, the inhabitants still depend to a large extent on the coastal steamer for their contact with the rest of the world. The daily coming and going of these boats the year round provides a seagoing bus service for the isolated farmer fishermen, as well as the growing number of city dwellers. In the far north, where water power is abundant, efforts are being made to introduce industry and to take advantage of this cheap source of energy. The availability of inexpensive electric power is the basis of this modern chemical factory located in Glomsfjord, a small town north of the Arctic Circle. About 650 men are employed here the year round, many of whom previously obtained their living from farming and fishing. The factory has stabilized the economy of Glomsfjord so that there is now work for all, and new houses and roads are being built. This is the land of the midnight sun. At this latitude, the sun never sets during 3 weeks of the summer. In the winter, there is a corresponding period when it never rises above the horizon. In spite of their location, the inhabitants of Glomsfjord are well aware of events in the rest of Norway and the world at large. This remote spot, at the end of a fjord, is very much a part of the 20th century. Over 2,000 ships from all over the world come here every year. Some deliver raw materials, others carry the factory's products to foreign countries, including the sister Skandinavien Islands. Here, the chemical fertilizer made in Glomsfjord is being unloaded in Jutland, in Denmark. It will be used by the local Farmers Cooperative, an organization to help the farmers produce and market their products. Today, the structure of these cooperatives is also rapidly changing. They, too, are being rationalized. More and more of the smaller cooperatives are merging to form larger and more specialized units. Where there were formerly a dozen small cooperative dairies, today there is only one. The result is that this one dairy is better equipped to allow the individual Danish farmer to compete successfully in the world market. In Sweden as elsewhere, the new forms and patterns of 20th century living are of major concern to city planners. The Swedes are leaders in the development of new approaches to the problems of urban living. In Stockholm, a large portion of the downtown area has been rebuilt into a new commercial center with good connections to the suburbs. Modern subways enable a large portion of the labor force to live in a ring of satellite towns that surround the central city. Most of these commuters live in apartment houses because construction of multiple dwellings is less expensive and provides a faster solution to the housing shortage. The new suburbs are not meant merely as places for people to sleep, however, but are communities with a variety of facilities. There is housing for people of all ages, and usually business offices and some light industry. Parking areas alternate with children's play areas, and schools are readily available. Each of the satellite towns has its own center, where one can find shopping facilities, a library, restaurants, and other conveniences. The problems that Scandinavians face in their everyday life are similar to those faced by people in any industrialized society. It's pretty difficult to see much difference between a supermarket in a Scandinavian suburb and its counterpart in the United States. Like everywhere else in the Western world, young people in Scandinavia are faced with a vastly different world than their parents before them. Many changes are taking place in the northern countries, yet centuries of tradition still play an important role for the young men and women of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, both in their daily life and their education. In schools and colleges throughout the North, tomorrow's leaders are influenced by both tradition and change as they prepare to deal with the challenges that will face their countries during the last portion of the 20th century. As they learn to combine their individual differences with their common purposes in a way that is characteristic of the closely knit Scandinavian countries of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden.